a lot of people who are deriding science, they don't even know what they're deriding. It's like saying, like, dude, fucking redheads, I don't fuck with them. Be like, you ever fuck with a redhead before? Like, no. Have you ever gotten laid before? No. Well, then shut up about it. How can you know what your preference is if you haven't even tried it? Me personally, in my own head, in my imagination, I've tried every flavor. All kinds of girls. All kinds of guys, too.
I was about to say.
All kinds of people of a gender I don't even care about. Multiple genders at the same time. My head's a fucked up place, Pat. Folks, Dr. Mike here for RP Strength, and I am joined by my esteemed colleague, Dr. Pack, who makes my top 10 list of best exports from the country of Greece. Other things on that list include, let me try a few and then you let me know. What's that cucumber dressing y'all motherfuckers use?
Tzatziki, cucumber
Tzatziki.
dressing.
And then Wonder Woman and no, she's Israeli, Scott the video guy, but Wonder Woman is Greek because she is from she's a Greek goddess technically, sort of. And Themyscira, that's very Greek, isn't it? Yeah. And then the Olympics you guys came up with, wrestling, also in the Olympics subcategory technically, so that's 4.5 or we're up to.
The gym is a Greek word.
Yes. Modern civilization. That was cool, low key, pretty great. Democracy, a word I can't say, but it means interacting with minors in a way that they're not having maybe so much fun and adult things are involved.
Pedagogy, you could say.
You could say that.
Yeah, which is not that, but
close.
Yeah.
And then philosophers and shit.
That as well.
You guys don't, what is the name for Greece in Greek?
Elada or Hellas. Hellas.
Yeah, because Helen basically is like the shit over there still. Is
Yes.
she like your Queen of England, sort of?
Yeah. It's we have the Zeus, the goat, the three other gods. Pray for rain, and just white houses and donkeys everywhere.
Donkeys? I didn't know that, really. I thought that was Mexico. Mexicans, I love you, but your donkeys are off the chain in a good way. Do you know what the Mexican donkey show is?
No.
No way?
No.
Later, off camera, I will tell you what that is.
Awesome.
Imagine a donkey and a woman interacting in a way that typically species don't.
I have imagined it.
My man, it's a conversation over chess.
Yes.
You freak. What were you thinking? The donkeys are fucking good at chess. You wouldn't think, right? Because normally they're just stand there and they're like, ah. But like, dude, they fucking pull that queen out quick. But they don't pull out quick in all the other regards. I'll shut up now. I am simply rambling to nowhere for two reasons. One, I've had a long week of work and I have no idea what's going on anymore. I'm delusional. But two, I'm trying to stay away from this quite terrible subject that is, honestly, I think a little bit of kind of the peril of our times. Mm-hmm. If we talk about current events that are quite scary, we got the Middle Eastern kind of wars, but that sort of happens all the time. We got Russia, Ukraine, terrible. We got China, Taiwan, scary, World War III type of shit. But then also we know for a fact, the worst one of all of these is that exercise science is killing your gains. And in fact, could it be killing you? Tune in tonight at 11, Channel News 4. But on a serious note, is exercise science killing gains? Does starting to read literature and try to use exercise science means you're going to get smaller rather than bigger? And why are all the bros gigantic and probably illiterate? How does that all work?
Yeah. So it's a thing we are somewhat used to hearing now, more like a knee-jerk reaction to people reacting to a misinterpretation or a misrepresentation of scientific thinking rather than actual science. When it comes...
Yes. Scientific thinking, as they understand it, is you cannot say or do anything in the gym without a laundry list of references.
Yes. And if you don't have a PubMed link to justify everything and anything that you do in the gym, you are not a science-based lifter.
Scientific-based dating would, let's say you and I were on a date.
Are we not?
Hello.
Hello.
McBride et al. 2008.
5.
Say something to me. Anything, say anything.
Hi.
Citation?
Imagine
my man. See, now we're on a date. That's it. Cut. So that is not how scientific dating works. I would have no idea how dating works. Have you ever been on a date?
Yes.
Why was that so awkward for you to answer?
Because I totally went on one, and I remember it because I did it
Of course you
with the
did.
dates and the dating stuff.
That was fun. And it turns out exercise science doesn't work like just citations only either. Pac, what does it look like when you use exercise science properly to inform your lifting in the gym?
For sure. So being an evidence-based or a science-based lifter is comprised of a few things. One, you use scientific literature when available as the base of your knowledge.
The base of your knowledge,
The base.
not the totality of your knowledge.
Exactly. Then you have expert opinion and experience as well. So coaches, athletes, and obviously
Experienced lifters.
and your own experience in the gym that you obviously have to G-check with the scientific base. So if you're like, based on my experience, lifting doesn't grow muscle, well, we have plenty of evidence to show the opposite. But anyways, and then you also have your personal preferences or the preferences of whoever you're working with if you're a professional.
Your client is like, I like leg presses, not hack squats. You don't need a citation. You just be like, sweet, we're going to do leg presses. Or if you're a really good coach, you're like, shut up, pussy. You're doing hack squats.
Yes. So with that example, you know from the science that similar movement pattern, as long as you're hitting long muscle lengths and using a great range of motion and you can overload the muscle and so on and so forth, that's science. Then from experience and obviously expert opinion, you know that a lot of people have utilized both movements to see amazing gains. Couple that up with preference. Okay, you want the leg press instead of the hack squat? Amazing. That's great. That's an evidence-based approach.
There are a couple of issues I've heard people run into, complaints they have about exercise science in the lifting world. I'd like to share a few of them and get your responses. Or maybe you can't respond and then you'll be punching the air RN. Is that how it looks like?
Yeah, we'll obviously edit it and say whatever we want because big science and big PhDs paying the bills here.
I don't like to admit this publicly, but Scott the video guy never just edits a video or sends it to Max or Aki, the editor guys. He actually sends it to Big Pharma first, just to make sure we don't run afoul of certain, sponsorships that we have. And then it goes to Big Sugar because we never want to disappoint them. And you would think at that point it just goes straight to the YouTube editors. Nope. Big Dairy.
Oh, yeah.
Because they really get persnickety about various things that we say. But if we're just talking about folks with their experiences on the internet, I had a couple of critiques about exercise science that I'd like for you to respond to. One is people will say, look, you talk to one exercise scientist, you hear one thing. You talk to another one of you people, us people, and you hear another thing. How the fuck am I supposed to make sense of this shit? My first response to that would be, well, different bros say different shit, motherfucker, so it's no different. But also, I have more nuanced responses I could give. I want to hear your shit first. How would you respond to that sort of thing?
My initial response would be what you said as well. But also, I think that's a bit of a strawman argument. If you look in our field, with the exception of one or two crazy individuals who are doing all sorts of stuff, you've debated one, you'll see that there is a sort of consensus for most things and for most basic principles when it comes to getting jacked and getting super strong.
Menno Henselmans, Eric Helms, Greg Knuckles, Brad Schoenfeld, Milo Wolf, Pac Andrew Lucas,
That guy.
Dr. Mike, the real Dr. Mike, the doctor guy, not me, JK, me. We probably agree on something like 90% of the core stuff.
More.
Maybe more.
Definitely more.
I think the disagreements stand out and act as sand and get to the vaginas of irritated anti-intellectuals on the internet.
Yes.
And so they go, these guys can't even agree on anything. And that's just you having a lot of feelings because we mostly agree on things. But as scientifically minded people, we can't agree on everything because there's not a degree of certainty that is allowable by science that is 100%. And so in addition to that, healthy disagreement means the debate is going on and we can push into directions of more certainty with research and with understanding. If everyone agreed on stuff, kind of gives off cult vibes instead of science vibes. So I think sometimes people see that we disagree on a little bit here and there and they think, oh, well, they just always disagree. More or less same page?
Yes, 100%.
There is a shortcut to this. We consult the ultimate arbiter of evidence-based YouTube lifting, and that's Jeff Nippert. We just ask him what's going on. And then whatever Jeff says It's just categorically
That
true.
flies.
But that like appeal to authority, even though he is the God among us. I actually called Jeff Nippard, and I want this to stay in. Scott, the video guy. I called the two of us short kings, and he corrected me instantly and asserted truthfully that he was a short God. And I was like, yes, sir. I took a knee. Other than recourse to Jeff Nippard, there is another thing people will say. They'll say, look, these scientists, now we get a consensus. So before we were all arguing against each other and nothing made sense. Now for this next critique, we're all just one unified unit, exercise scientists that all say the same thing. But these people will say, the shit they say changes all the goddamn time. They say don't train to failure. Next, the data-driven strength people say you should only train to failure with their meta-regression. I don't know what data-driven strength is. I know there's a guy named Zach involved. I think he's great.
Awesome guy.
But our meta-regression, meta is like some shit you say when you're really high. Regression is something that your parents keep telling you you're doing after college. You just never did anything with your life. I don't even know what it means. It confuses and irritates me. Thus, I hate it. And it always says some different shit. Pac, how would you respond to the idea that science is always changing, so who gives a shit, because hashtag the bros knew all along what to do?
Yeah. The first response is, hey, what the bros say varies quite.
Arnold versus Mike Menser, both bros, completely contradictory training styles.
Yes. A lot of the stuff that bros or experienced coaches say also change or are very different.
As it should. Shit evolves.
Yes.
Weird.
In science, yes, things do change over time, and we adjust our training, approaches to those things. But that's not a bad thing. And the idea that every month things are massively changing is, again, just a false idea and a strawman argument.
Do you think that's a little bit of an artifact of the YouTube title thumbnail game and the TikTok game, where people will be like, this new study on volume changes everything? And at the end of a 30-minute long in-depth discussion, they're like, it doesn't really change everything, but it's a cool new insight.
Perfect example with the 52 set study that people lost their minds.
Oh yeah, because they were like, so I'm supposed to be doing 52 sets now? It's like, no one ever said that.
Nobody.
You never read the study or even read a properly vetted abstract about it.
You didn't even watch the video. Nobody. We had a discussion, myself, Dr. Schoenfeld, Dr. Wolf, and the volume. Nobody changed their volume recommendations. All that study did was like, hey, turns out you want to push volume for a muscle group even more. Maybe you can push it even higher than we thought before. And if you look at the average volume in that study, it was lower than the volume, the Schoenfeld high volume study.
And the Radielli study before it, of which it was a replication.
Yes.
So basically, that 52 set study, even though it was the highest end number of sets ever studied, didn't even beat the 45 set studies before it. So caricaturing it as a new landmark high volume study was itself wrong. Because I suspect, no offense, fellows, feel free to take offense, fuck if I give a shit. A lot of people who are deriding science, they don't even know what they're deriding. It's like saying, like, dude, fucking redheads, I don't fuck with them. Be like, you ever fuck with a redhead before? Like, no. Have you ever gotten laid before? No. Well, then shut up about it. How can you know what your preference is if you haven't even tried it? Me personally, in my own head, in my imagination, I've tried every flavor.
Yeah.
All kinds of girls. All kinds of guys, too.
I was about to say.
All kinds of people of a gender I don't even care about. Multiple genders at the same time. My head's a fucked up place, Pac, but I'm having a good time.
Same.
So I think a lot of times when people, to your point, they're not even intentionally straw manning. They just don't really know what it is they're criticizing other than an amorphous YouTube thumbnail. I was on a podcast of a very nice gentleman who asked me this question, not in any kind of vitriol. He asked it just sort of openly. So like, how come you exercise scientists disagree? And I said, name people that disagree. And he was like, Dr. Milo Wolf. And I was like, we agree on 90% of everything. He's like, okay. And the next several people he named were just YouTubers and not exercise scientists. And I was like, go on. And he's like, fucking, you got me. But he had the perception that it was exercise science types. And so if you say exercise scientists, it's like, you have to go to school for that, and have a degree in that, and have a profession in that. Just a blogger or vlogger doesn't quite meet that muster. And so people see like 3 or 4 YouTube thumbnails from their favorite creators. Something seems to contradict something else, mostly for the algorithm game. And then they get confused because they can't get straightforward answers, which is my next question for you, Pac. Do you think some of the frustration with exercise science is because it changes? And because science can't give full certainty, are some people just interested in like science and exercise being the same thing as like the science of transistors? Like, here's exactly the voltage channels you need, and we know this down to a 1-to-1 ratio. But not all sciences are of equal hardness to one another, if I may be so perverse. Do people just want the kind of direct answers that a social science slash physical science at this rate can't give them?
Yes, I think that's the main issue here, the expectation from science. And we've seen that not only in our field, in other fields as well,
Sure.
where they're like, how dare they be wrong or change? Because they expect science to be this thing where they imagine us in a lab with a lot of fancy equipment, figuring out the exact thing you need to do in every instance to make the most gains. When in reality, we're trying to get closer to the truth. There are some terms and conditions. But in our field specifically, and in the pursuit of maximal strength and hypertrophy gains, the basics are pretty much the basics that they were. Sure, now we're talking about length and partials. Hey, there may be something there. But has that really changed massively how we do things? Yes, we're emphasizing the stretch a bit more.
Sure. It's not like turning everything upside down.
Exactly.
Pac, last question for you. Do you think we as exercise scientists and as kind of the torch carriers of the profession, could we do anything better to communicate science better? Or are we doing some shit real bad that we're just asking for it at this point?
Yeah, we can be a bit more cautious with some of the things we express and the way we express them, to keep reminding people that, hey, we're still figuring out some of the fine details.
This is our best guess at the moment.
The best guess at the moment, but chances are, even if that best guess is somewhat wrong, because again, the basics are in place, you're not looking at losing your gains or killing your gains. The misinterpretation of science and the anxiety and the neurotic behavior of, oh, I gotta know every last detail the latest paper said, and I gotta be super scientific with everything, otherwise I'm not making gains. That's what's killing your gains.
Yeah. How many people out there training and who are hashtag team science just have like just below diagnosable neurotic disorder?
Yeah, I don't know. But that's the science in me.
Some. That's right. That is a good answer. I suspect it's quite a few. I think a lot of people who flock to science are uncomfortable with uncertainty, and they pretend the science to have more certainty than it can give us at this juncture. And then some of them will assert to the bros, you're doing this wrong. Science says otherwise.
Yeah, exactly.
One PubMed link. And it's like, first of all, if that's not a meta-analysis, I don't give a fuck what one study said. And second of all, there's much more context and nuance than any piece, if even agglomeration of research can tell you. And so a lot of people who just are uncomfortable with uncertainty pretend that science answers those uncertainties. And then some people who fall for that end up being like, well, what the hell? These are all educated guesses. I thought you guys had revealed wisdom. And then they get pissed.
Yeah, and that's the thing, man. It's those people and people that don't get science that give science a bad name. When it comes to practical, like us in the trenches, us in the gym, like a scientific way to train, sure, you're paying a bit more attention to a few variables, but scientific training is literally good old hard training with consistency for strength, for hypertrophy. Nobody's telling you you have to be on a balsa ball, twerking, at RIR 35 and doing something easy or something completely unconventional.
Yes. One thing also that I think is helpful is for people, both in the production of science, the communication of science, and the consumption of science, to understand that there's a very big difference between altering the core fundamentals and looking for sense of optimality at the margins.
Yes.
Because I think some people will be like, so do I do 37 sets or 39? And my response is usually like, you need to check into a psychiatric facility. But I think when we're talking about core fundamentals, science has, first of all, never contradicted them and only has bolstered support for them. But on the periphery, very small details here and there, science can change on quite rapidly, but those details don't matter that much.
Exactly.
And so if we remember that, when science says this new thing, it's like the news. If you read news headlines and really take them to heart, you're going to have a panic disorder today. The world is ending today, because the news is always like, artificial intelligence has boosted our economy by 300%. But is there a slowdown in the works? Like, oh God, a slowdown. can't afford a slowdown. That'll just make the gains still keep coming, but at a slower rate. But it sounds bad. And so a lot of exercise science is like, should you really be doing lengthened partials? I think it gives people a bit of anxiety to see that. But guys, these are all small things. Consistency, challenging the muscle over time, making sure to recover, growing in strength over time and making sure that's happening, choosing exercises that work for you. Nobody's trying to dispute that.
Yes, exactly. Even with a lengthened partial example, 5 to 10% more growth.
Yeah.
If you look at what that means, and that's with disclaimers as well.
Sure.
You're talking about a fine detail with if.
Sure.
You know.
Sure. 100%. Two things. One, where can people find you if they want to hear from you more?
Dr. Pack on YouTube.
Is there another Dr. Pack that they could accidentally click on? Have you looked at
No.
this? You're the only one.
And drpack.com. Worth it. $1,000.
I've been to drpack.net. Very different experience.
Very different experience.
And lastly, just to fuck with you guys, Scott the Video Guy is going to cook up the nastiest thumbnails for the next month to confuse you about science. Pack, great having you on. Nice watch, by the way.
Thank you.
And your tattoos tell me that you're a criminal.
Yes, exactly. Calvin and Hobbes and Lisa Simpson, the infamous gang. CNHNS gang.
Anyone who talks to a gigantic, also talking animal and looks quite aggressive, I'm afraid of and consider a potential criminal. And also Lisa Simpson looks like she's been on a couple of grams of Anadrol for a while.
She has been.
As is well intended. Folks, don't quit your violin practice and start taking steroids. I've been Dr. Mike. See you guys next time.